Help Action Needed, a D&D podcast. Hello everyone, and welcome back to a very special bonus action of Help Action Needed, a D&D podcast. Today's episode is featuring myself and Kate, our regular players who are music therapists, as well as two music therapy friends of ours, and we're going to be doing a special Oops All Bards episodes in honor of Music Therapy Advocacy Week. This one will also be DM'd this time by our typical Dan Johnson, so let's go ahead and go around do our typical introductions. Dan, how about you start this time?
Hello, this is Dan Johnson, and I'll be DMing this.
Nice. This is Sean Harty again, and I will be playing Cennius O'Hare.
I am Kate Pisarczyk-Johnson, and I'm playing Elara Blackendoth.
I am Josh Morano, and I will be playing Maxcilious Raberthorn.
I'm Victoria Kleeman, and I'm playing Venbella Keintaci.
Well, Dan, I'll turn the rest of the episode over to you.
All right. So, to get started with this, for this campaign, little one-shot, we will be having a small little adventure in the lands of Eberron. Just a little background information for the listeners. Eberron was originally 5 nations that consisted of Onder, Breland, Carnith, Thrain, and Sire, and this built up the Kingdom of Galifar. Over the past years, the land has been ravaged with a civil war that has been referred to as the Last War, and about 2 years ago, this war came to an abrupt end, following the downfall of one of the original kingdoms known as Sire. So, just for the group, the story will be starting in Corvair, which is the total continent, but you will specifically be in the land of... you'll be in the land of Thrain, in the capital of Flame Keep. Cennius has recently received a letter from an interesting party looking for your specific services in an undisclosed adventure that they will need you to help with. And with that, we can jump into the group, sort of entering the city and making their way towards the church that is found in the middle of the town.
I think as Cennius looks up and sees the church ahead, and knowing that he's gathered Elara, Maxcilious, and Venbella from school, I think he wants to try and read the note to them and kind of give them a bit of information on what all's going down. Especially because I don't think we've all taken classes together at Bard College, but I don't know if we've all met each other as well. So it might just be a nice introduction for everyone to know what the mission is that we're about to share. What the letter says, at least.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yes.
Upon opening the letter, Cennius, you'll see the letter is addressed directly to you, requesting your assistance in the town of Flamekeep, specifically to go to the Silver Flame. The contents of the letter are a bit dubious, to say the least, as they are requesting your assistance on an undisclosed matter specifically, but they do mention that your group will be highly compensated in monetary funding as well as a favor, which is literally written in quotes, which a little bit questioning, but they pretty much tell you to come prepared, bring any equipment you would need for potential battle, and bring your knowledge of the musical arts and any weapons you would need, as well as healing potions, etc. And that is the majority of the letter. It is also addressed by Cardinal Aberstein of the Council of Cardinals, which you would not have a reference of who this would be personally.
Okay. I think in that case then, after we all read the letter, Cennius is going to walk up to the building he knows, and he's used to he's not the smartest person in the world, but he's full of confidence and knows that he can get his way as long as he gives a smile and lets someone do something. So he's just gonna walk up in, assuming there's like a reception or something, walk in and just like let out a little sigh, like, oh, could anyone help me find my person? I'm a little lost, but I'd be glad to talk with anyone that needs it. And to see if he can grab the attention of people to help direct us where we need to go.
Before Cennius, you walk in, I feel like Elara would probably question a couple things. So we're going to the Silver Flame. That is where the letter's wanting us to go. Yeah, solid. And contextually, within the world, so to speak, we know of the Council of Cardinals. Is that what you said, Dan?
Yeah, so your characters specifically would know that the Church of the Silver Flame is ran in part by the Council of Cardinals. It's sort of like the upper echelon of the managing like party that runs the church. So this is a higher up person, but you, again, none of you really have any direct contact with this person. This is the first time you would have ever seen this person's name or specifically talked to them.
Okay. And so then with Cennius, you told us this information, correct? Like you said, here's the letter and you read it to us?
Yeah, I would have read the letter with all of you outside before walking in.
Okay, so then
And
before
shared
walking
upon the
in,
recruitment, but
before walking in, I would have asked you if you knew of this person, if you'd ever been in contact with anyone from the group, or have you ever been to the Church of Silver Flame?
you go, no, I've never been one to be religious nor to the church. I just assume that they're here to provide scholarship. Like, school's expensive and I see favor and heavily compensated, and I'm going to get that money. Do you have relations with them that we should be priorly concerned about?
No, I was just wondering because, generally I don't like to like just blindly follow people. However, it kind of seems to be our band of merry men. Sometimes we just blindly follow you places. But the highly compensated aspect would be really, really great. And then that would be Alara's like commentary prior to what we were going to do for.
And as this conversation unfolds, the person that Cennius called down previously has sort of just been awkwardly standing there waiting for you to wrap up. And as you turn, you see just a casual mage rite, sort of a standard magic practitioner of the area, sort of helping you and helping the citizens with questions. A non-magical request is a little bit odd for this specific person, but seeing as this is the only person that really came, they do point you down the road to where the true entrance to the Church of the Silver Flame is. The Church of the Silver Flame is a large, ornate building. You can see a large monument in the center marking sort of the pinnacle of the church itself and what it stands for. But to find the entrance, you just have to continue down the road, and pretty much the road winds a little bit, and you'll see as you make your way, the mage rite says you'll go right to the front door.
Yeah, Cennius thanks them for their kind efforts and hopes that they'll have a great day, and it just is so amazed they took the time to help us out. And then leaves, and as soon as he turns around, you all just see his face drop. Like, he does not give any interest in this person, but he just wants to make them feel good about themselves. And I think we can all head to that church then. Do Maxcilious or Venbella have anything that they'd be doing?
Hanging back for right now, taking everything in.
Bella would probably also be questioning why we were blindly following. And yes, yeah.
Well, I think Elara, in this wonderful path that we are going down, would probably talk about her and Cennius's friendship in the context of schooling, and just be like, he's just one of those people that people just kind of gravitate towards, and he generally doesn't get into too much trouble. I guess people kind of like him. And when he said highly compensated and a favor, then I think my ears perked a little bit, and I said, why not? Plus, being a dragonborn, people kind of take you seriously, so I figured if we get into any trouble, I'll just, beat him up if I need to, I guess. So that's why I followed him.
Does Maxcilious have anything he'd add?
Just that I kind of came from a low stock, relatively low income area, and so basically, yeah, the mention of any sort of monetary gain is very appealing, especially if there's some like mystery involved too.
Nice. I think on the way to the Church of the Silver Flame, Cennius is just continuing his charade, like stopping and saying hi to everyone that looks at him, like waving at anyone that looks, like just very much being the most people person he can be as we make our way over.
Yes, and as you said, as you're sort of making your way over, the group will sort of see, you're not from the area, from Thrain in general, but you've never truly spent a notable amount of time in Flamekeep. So you know that magic is common throughout the land, but Flamekeep is sort of the pinnacle of the land. Like, so as you see, like mage rights sort of lining the streets, sort of helping people with menial tasks, sort of with magic as needed. But on top of that, you see all of the areas lit in pretty well with bright lanterns. So it's just a magical lantern that just casually emits light as needed throughout the day, so it automatically is adjusting. But as you're going through town, you do realize that while this is the capital, this town has not been excluded from the damages of war. There is still signs of war. It has been, you've seen repairs happening, and aside from the church, the outer regions of the town are still sort of in rough shape. They're better than the rest of the country, but they're still falling apart. So your team, in quotes, having less money is not surprising to anyone. This is a common thing among the land. Everyone's trying to get back to the way things were prior to the last war. But sort of as you're noticing this and moving up the street, you do become closer to the church and end up at the front door. Cennius, assuming that you are still leading the party just based on charisma alone, I would assume that you are the first to reach the door.
Cool. And I think as he enters in, he's just gonna like walk in and use like a little prestidigitation to make it sound like an angelic chorus is going on as they walk in. Like the letter specifically said, like, we need you for your musical talents, and his father is a celestial, so he's very used to like riding the high of I come from the heavens, so therefore I'm amazing. So he's just gonna walk in, and as all four get in, just let a little angelic choir happen to announce our arrival and wait for the reaction of his peers and the others.
Elara would immediately give him a death glare, and in her brain think internally, why the hell is Cennius being so extra right now? But also acknowledging that this is very common behavior for an individual as charismatic as Cennius, but still look like a little disgruntled, probably hanging out towards like the back of the four of us.
Maybe chuckle a little bit, but nothing beyond that.
So, as the group enters to the sounds of angelic voices singing and Gregarian monks just chanting in the background, sort of an epic entrance, you see the building inside is quite spacious. It was built to sort of use this acoustic to amplify acoustics. So this is even more predominant than originally anticipated as it echoes through the halls. And as it starts to echo down the hallway, you see a few older men sort of like peek their heads out the door, wondering what's going on, since this is usually a very silent place. But you do notice one older gentleman walk towards you, a human in red and silver flowing gowns, sort of making his way at a relatively uncomfortable pace for someone his age, trying to figure out what the commotion is about.
Yeah, when he gets within range, Cennius will look up and go like, Oh, hi. I'm so sorry if I got your attention. We're just looking for the Cardinals. They sent a letter to me asking for me and some of the other members of the Bard College to come aid in some sort of arrangement. It was a little unidentified, but since we didn't know who summoned us and as we didn't quite know exactly where to go, I wanted to make sure it was clear that we had arrived as asked. And I think there's a little bit of diction on clear to be like, you didn't tell us shit. We're going to make sure you know we're not too happy with it.
And this, hearing the inflection in your voice, the elder gentleman introduces himself as Paul, and is just like, excuse me, so you said you had a letter. Can I see the letter really quick? Just, I want to verify what you're here for.
Yeah, Cennius will hand the letter to Paul to see, but never really lets go of it. But presents it, but still holding on to it.
And the guy, Paul, uncomfortably sort of grabs it to try to read it, and you're being a little difficult, not letting him truly see it. But just at a quick glance, he does look to the signature and see that it is signed off by Cardinal Aberstein, and his demeanor almost instinctually changes. He sort of straightens up a little bit. He's like, "Oh, apologies. Let me show you to his chambers." And following that, he sort of gives Cennius sort of an odd look, and then looks to the rest of you, even more confused as to what's going on, sort of mirroring your guys' understanding of the situation. And you make your way down the hall, and again, as you're making your way, you see monks and clerics of the church in similar attire. They're all in the casual dress of the silver and red robes matching the Silver Flames attire. And as they go down further, you'll see it sort of splits into rooms, and the rooms are to the left. The hallway on the right is where it looks like larger offices are. And you go in, and you are shown into a room where an even more elderly man sits, and he looks much more prepared for your arrival. So Paul sort of shows you in, and Aberstein is sitting at a nicely carved wooden desk, sort of waiting for you, and there's 4 chairs waiting there sort of for your arrival.
When Paul leaves, does he shut the door behind us to make it a private moment, or is it still open to everyone behind us?
It's still open, but as you sort of take your seats, he does quietly shut it.
Okay. I think Cennius would sit down and go, "You clearly know who I am. I have no idea who you are, and you have no idea who my friends are. So, we can either start with why this letter is written to me by name, or I'd love it if you met my friends," and gesture for everyone to introduce themselves.
Well, aside from Cennius's forwardness, hi, my name is Elara. It is lovely to make your acquaintance. I am definitely intrigued to see what is going to be this potential adventure, but I do apologize for Cennius's forthrightness. Maybe you don't necessarily need to know who he is, but I'm Elara. It is nice to meet your acquaintance.
Yes. Hello, sir. My name is Maxcilious. I'm also part of this group that you sent this letter to. I was very intrigued, particularly by the hefty compensation that was promised. So I'm excited to hear what this quest is that you're meant to put us on.
And I'm Venbella. Hi, it's nice to meet you. I am also interested in that compensation in the letter, and I just followed Cennius here.
Understood. Well, thank you all for coming on very short notice. And again, I apologize for the vagueness of the letter. And as he's saying this, you could sort of see him looking around you guys to make sure the door is closed.
Mm-hmm.
And as soon as he realizes the door is closed, voice drops. He sort of loosens his necktie little area, and he's like, "Okay, all right, guys, I do need your help. Cennius, we have never met in person per se, but I have seen you around, and it's very hard to not notice your character. You're very, kind of plays for a
Angelic.
second, outgoing. So I figured you would be the best person for this job, and also I know that you specifically grew up in Shadukar under going to the Bards College there under the tutelage of the patron saint of music of the land. So this is sort of you and some of your associates, which we left up to your discretion based sort of in the urgency. If we could have picked out people, we would have, but we did trust your judgment with this specifically. So that being said, as you know, the church is the main focal point of our country. And despite the church leading the country specifically, the old noble system is still well in place. And we did have a request from one of the noble families to marry one of their sons. And the son's wife has a very specific request that your group may be better suited for than most guards even. The wife is looking for an heirloom from your former tutor, the patron saint of music, that was unfortunately lost in Sire, which Sire, or he just sort of like shudders and is like the Mournlands, as they're more well known now. And she does request it is grabbed and returned. She has a good idea of where it's at. She does say it's dangerous, but we have sent people there already to clear out the majority of the issues that would arise. But we do need your help getting through this last puzzle, per se. The guards, unfortunately, aren't very versed in anything musical or anything related to the arts in that sense. So we needed someone with your background specifically to help with this. And again, this is one of the noble families of the land, and they have not been greatly impacted by the war. Let's put it like that. So when I say you'll be fairly compensated, you will be very fairly compensated. So that being said, is anyone have concerns? I understand we would be shipping you to the Mournlands, and we have some transportation set up for you already. So barring that everyone is good, we can get you there pretty much instantly through some means that are a little bit more tasteful.
Before Cennius has a chance to jump in, I think Elara is going to just kind of look at everybody and be like, we're just like slightly lowly college students. Do you maybe have some like health potions we could just take off your hands and keep on us just in case?
Sort of knowing this was going to be a topic of conversation, Aberstein sort of like looks at you, waits for you to finish, and chuckles, and he's like, we do have provisions ready. I do not have them here. This is just my standard office for the church. But at the location where we would be transporting to, there is some equipment available to you as needed. But again, please remember that most of the difficulties, let's say, that you could run into should be dealt with already. We have sent some guards there to clear out the riffraff that sort of filled the area that we know we need to go to. But again, we do have some equipment, so yes, we will have something to provide for you. And no, this will not impact your payment upon completion.
Elara will say, thank you very much, Cardinal. We greatly appreciate this additional assistance, and especially not taking from our potential compensation. But then Elara, feeling pretty good about it, will just look at Cennius and be like, whenever you're ready, I'm good to go.
The other two might have concerns. How unkind of you to not make sure everyone's addressed, Elara. And gives a look at the other two to see if anyone else has something to say.
Venbella would just be like, I agree with Elara. We might need some health potions once we get there. But I think that I'm ready for this adventure.
Sort of seeing no other interjections, Aberstein will sort of get up and be like, Is anyone concerned about the compensation? Like, this can be discussed any further before we leave. I just want to make sure, is anyone concerned or have concerns that they will not be fairly rewarded for this?
No concerns on that front, as we all know how lucky the nobility were during the war to maintain their stature and wealth. A small concern on the human side, however. The guards you've received recent communication from them. There's been no changes. There's been no Mournland interference we need to know about going into it.
That is a good question. The last communications we had were about a day ago, and there's a small camp that we have set up right outside of what was the city of Eston, if you are familiar with it. It's right over the river between the lands. There is a little camp set up there. Everything was fine the last time we checked in. I haven't gotten the report this morning quite yet, but we have no reason to believe there's concerns to date. And of course, if there is, we will make sure you guys are safely transported back regardless. Hopefully.
No more concerns on mine end. Thank you so much for being an active part of this conversation.
And with that, Everstain will stand up, sort of looking a little bit disheveled just from being able to relax. You'll see his comb his hair back again, tighten up his robes, and will lead you out of the room. And you can see as soon as you leave, there is a small crowd of people gathering. And as you leave, there's another room on the hallway on the right where you see two people not in the cloaks of the church and the robes. There's a taller man, about 5'10", long black hair, moderate build, and a shorter woman with blonde hair, auburn hair, dark green eyes, about 5'5", so a little bit shorter, and looks to be partly elf, not 100% sure, but you can tell they seem out of place. And this is just on the room as you're walking by, but unless anyone has anything, you will just sort of continue down the hallway.
I think Cennius would flash him a smile, catching that they're there, but if he feels no need to interact with them, just give the standard passing smile and continue on.
Elara would stick at the back of the group and see if she can slow her gait a little bit to do a perception check to see if she can hear anything. Would that be correct, Ian?
Yeah, that would be fine.
Right. 12.
Good roll. That's exactly what you needed. So as again, you're sort of walking by, so even on a slow gait or a slow pace, you wouldn't be able to hear too much. But from just the passing glance, you do ascertain that they are a couple talking about a wedding to a few of the monks and clerics of the church specifically. So you could make the assumption that these are the clients that you are working for. But you don't hear anything, there's no names dropped. It's more just trying to plan what the ceremony would look like, what's needed, so on and so forth.
Elara, noting that, is just going to maybe pay particular attention to their appearance, kind of memorizing what they look like in case if it's of any importance later, like when we come back. But other than that, Elara will just keep walking with the rest of the group.
Sure, and keeping note of her appearance, you do see on the shoulder of the woman, there is a sigil which you may be familiar with. It is the sigil of what was the land of Sire, which is sort of odd for the time, considering based on the tragedy of the morning, most of the citizens of Sire did die during the event. Many did not escape. Many are still in that land, sort of there, their bodies unfortunately not able to be put to rest.
Dumb question. Does it matter which arm it's on? It did.
No.
Nope. Okay, cool. Yep. All right.
Okay. So following that, you would sort of catch up with the group, sort of imagining that you would lag behind slightly, but they're still going at a normal pace. It's not like you have to work too hard. As you continue walking, it's a lot of the same. The church isn't too fascinating in these side hallways. It's really just a normal building, except when you get into the open auditory section where the services are held. But as you get to the end of the hallway, you see two larger double doors made of heavy wood that there are guards standing in front of for it. And as Aberstane approaches, the guards do begin to open the doors for you. And in here, you see a group of mage rights. These do not have the same attire as the ones in the street. These are specifically of one of the houses of the land of Corvair. And you can tell from just a quick glance that these are the mage rights of the House of Orion. And they are there for pretty much passage/travel. So you know that anything related to travel by train or by airship or by teleportation are handled by this group. But the number that are in here, there is 4 in a circle and 2 more on the outside. And to see this many in a small group, you can tell this is not a typical situation. So you walk in, and on the ground you see sort of a circle of sigils that are set up. And as you walk in, you hear the four mage rights in the circular pattern sort of start chanting, and the sigils start to light up and release a prominent blue glow from the floor. So, and then following that, Aberstane turns around and be like, so is everyone good to go? Explaining that this is where the teleportation/transportation will take place. And once you get there, you will be in the camp that he has previously spoken about, and the supplies and anything you need potentially will be there for you to grab.
Yeah, Cennius just takes a moment to check with everyone else, and if everyone's good to go, he will happily walk forward for instruction on how to be teleported.
Yeah, Elara will just kind of walk through following his lead, and I'm assuming just kind of popping in and out of existence.
Is it assumed that we've traveled in this way before, or is this kind of like a first time?
Oh, that's a good question. I was about to actually explain that. So, seeing approval from the group, Aberstane actually addresses you one last time before leaving, and just sort of gives you all a slight prayer and blessing just of the Church of the Silver Flame. And from that, you all feel a little bit uplifted from it. There's no actual effects, but just sort of like, hey, but also slightly concerned, because you're like, if this is so safe, why are you like praying for safe passage type thing? But he gives you a blessing and he makes his way out. And the 2 other ones that are not included in the ritual for the sigil itself come up to you and ask if any of you have traveled before. And based on this method of transportation, you would not have. This is a very expensive method of transportation. Sort of driving home, you guys will be compensated pretty darn well, because transportation of this caliber, taking this many mage rights, usually costs about 2,500 gold pieces for one way. So this is a very expensive thing. So as they approach, you all sort of would shake your head no, and they begin to explain the process as Cennius sort of was requesting, saying that as you enter the circle, you will feel a pulling deep in like a guttural region of your body, and from that region you will almost feel like it's being pulled out, not in a painful way, but like pulling towards your destination. And in about what you would recognize as 1 second, you will snap into the next transportation circle. I do warn you that depending on your tolerance for magic and transportation speeds, you may get sick. That is really the only side effect you would have. I'm sort of explaining this, they're just sort of looking to you to not just be like, is everyone good and ready to go?
I think so. Thank you for the explanation.
Elara would continue to nod as well.
Mage Right just sort of nods in your direction, acknowledging your thanking, but not really feeling the need for it. And they sort of like help funnel you in, and as you get in there, you feel exactly what they described. You feel in a deep guttural region of your stomach, just sort of like a small pulling sensation that just feels like you're being elongated, and within a second, you're in the next area. And as you get into the next area, can everyone just do a quick Constitution saving throw?
Sure. Constitution. Not 2022 total.
Laura got 14.
Great.
Okay. All right. So, Venbella, Cennius, and Elara, you come through and you really feel fine. You're able to walk it off. Maxcilious, unfortunately, as you come through, you feel like your body is there, but it's almost like how your stomach was pulled. It has like an elastic effect, and it continues pulling and then snaps back. And you see a mage right sort of rushing to you with a bucket, knowing what's coming. And you, unfortunately, do just throw up. Not in a too visceral way, but it's like you are definitely in some discomfort. No damage is taken, and the group slowly steps off the sigil, and the guards welcome you to what is the camp.
I think Cennius would take a moment to help Maxcilious walk off, like with a hand on the shoulder, like being, for once in his life, very like supportive and empathetic, but also make a comment under his breath just for Maxcilious to hear and say, "It's a shame the Cardinal doesn't believe in the church enough to offer an actual prayer. A blessing of any kind could have helped us with that, but he only said words. How strange." But like very quietly, and then continues to lead Maxcilious off of the teleportation circle.
Laura and Venbella, give me a perception check real quick.
14.
All right, with a 14 and a 13, you'll both notice that as Cennius says this, relatively not discreet, two of the mage rights from House of Orion, since they are not tied to the Church of the Silver Flame at all, they do just sort of have an audible chuckle to themselves and just sort of address the very blatant jab at the church before the guards sort of usher you out of the room, just to sort of get this ready and get the bucket all cleaned up, since it's a very common occurrence. Mm-hmm. But as you are taken out of the room, the guards welcome you to a tent, and the tent, not very elaborate by any means. It's just a cloth and wood frame tent. But within the tent itself, as Cardinal Aberstein said, there is plenty of supplies. So anything you could really want or need for this adventure, within reason, is available. There's swords, daggers, bows. You do see in the corner, there is what looks to be just a guard stationed there behind a desk with a dresser behind it, sort of with potions that line the shelves. So if anyone does need anything, the guards sort of give you free reign, and they leave waiting for you outside the tent.
Is it just like basic healing potions? Is it...
You can go talk to the guard to figure out specifically what he has.
Yeah. And does it look like any of the weapons are magical, or they're all just basic weapons?
They're all just basic weapons, but depending on your equipment, these could be better. These are weapons from the capital specifically, and they're funded by the Church of the Silver Flame. So you will notice that some of the swords do seem to be silvered specifically. You don't know if that's really pertinent to anything you'd be facing, but it could be an upgrade if you would like it.
Elara would ask the guard if he has 4 healing potions, normal healing potions, and if we don't use them on the journey, Elara is more than happy to give them back.
And the guard sort of looks at you and looks to the other guards outside, and they give him a nod. And he passes 4 healing potions across the table to you, as well as 1 greater healing potion, just in case anything were to happen. The guards do seem very alert, given that the area is secured. They still know that this area in general is dangerous. So they will slide you an extra greater healing potion just in case for you to distribute as you see fit.
Okay, so 4 normal, 1 greater, and then Elara would also ask if they have anything heavier than leather armor? Anything that they also would be willing to at least part with for this small journey that they're going on?
You would know as a bard you're only proficient in light armor.
Oh, just kidding. Ignore that question. And can I ask for any better armor that's light?
So the guard sort of was like walking to like this little draped closet, already pulling out chainmail as you're like, no, never mind, I don't need it. So he's like puts it back. But upon your request for lighter armor, all he can really do is just pull out more leather armor, the same thing you already have. But it is again marked with the symbol of the church. So if you would like it, you could have a church branded set.
Elara, wanting to look really official, will take it and then go into the back room and change into it and come out and look at Cennius and be like, dun 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 dun. How does this look? Is this better? Is this fit your persona of wanting to bring attention to our group?
It looks very symbolic. And as
So kind.
as Elara is doing that, Cennius is going to look at one of the silvered swords on the wall, and ask one of the guards, be like, I just really love the way it catches my reflection. Could I borrow a longsword for a moment and test it out, maybe take it with us?
Yeah, and you'll see again the guards just sort of look at each other, and they personally don't care. Like again, the church has paid for all this equipment, so you have free reign to it. They do give you the fair warning. Yes, this is silvered, but as you can see, and they point to a lot of the weapons in the room, it's about a 50-50 mix. The silvered ones specifically were provided by the Church of the Silver Flame. It is just a representation of the Church of the Silver Flame. They're like, we don't prefer these either way. So if you want to keep it, go ahead.
No, as I said, I like the way it catches my reflection.
Bella would roll her eyes at Cennius' last comment and then ask if she could get a matching armor set to Elara because it looks cute. And that's it.
Maxcilious, is there anything you would need?
Maxcilious is feeling strangely prepared upon arrival and having evacuated his stomach. So, good for right now.
Guard just sort of looks at you, realizing that you're just like spaced out outside the tent already, and he goes and grabs the armor set for Venbella, hands it to you, and then lets you change before ushering you out to the 2 main guards outside the tent.
As I think Venbella and Elara come out, like, well, I think we're all ready, so should we put our musical talent to use in whichever way the church is requesting?
Let's
The guard,
Sorry.
We all now need to write like a 4-part harmony, let's go, so we can be like, ah!
sort of hearing this, the main guard like gives you a questioning stare and repeats back to you just musical talents.
I trust this guard implicitly more than I trust the church and hand him the letter we got, as well as stating, we were told by the Cardinal the reason you all were not sufficient was because you lacked the ability to perform for some sort of puzzle. I would assume that you all were safe, and my first question was your own safety and the thought after of you all. But he assured us that we have no reason to ask about the safety of the guards and that we were the people who needed to be here.
And you can see the guard sort of skim through the letter, listening to you at the same time, trying to absorb. And he sort of rolls it back up, hands it back to you, and he's like, oh, so that's the issue. Understood. So as he was reading through it, he sort of gives you a breakdown of what's happening. So inside the city of Eston specifically, inside the church, and as you sort of are out here, like, looking around, you sort of see, like, you're in a wasteland. Like, this area is covered in fog. It is war-torn. The landscape is just destroyed from explosions. You can see battlefields still oddly intact from a 2-year gap since the war ended. But aside from that, he sort of points you to a building you can see in the distance, not too far away. But he says that it's been cleared. It's just the item that they are looking for, which they have been directed is in here, is behind a sealed chamber that is underneath the church, and they are unsure how to open it. He has a tone of disapproval of Cennius, how you described how they were insufficient, specifically on that word, but sort of takes it on the chin and continues explaining that in the room below, there seems to be something that should be opened, but there's no indication of how to specifically open it. So that being said, he relays from the client that, can someone roll me a d4 really quick?
Sure.
Anyone
Sure.
can do it.
And as I'm rolling you a d4, seeing the face go, Cennius will be like, I would like to reassure you, insufficient was not my word for it. And I got a 1.
Perfect. Are you complimenting the guard?
Yeah, he's saying it very much in a way of like, I'm on your side, I believe in everything you've been doing, it's a shame. I think he's got that vibe of like, with his being like from a celestial, like he doesn't need a church to say, oh, there's something out there, it's literally in his blood. So the idea of people like using the church for their own message post-war when everyone is already so hurt, he's very against that. And so like he's making it come across as like, I believe in you and the power of your family of like your family of brothers in arms more than anyone telling you what to do, and very much means it as a compliment.
And the guard sort of rolls back his slight perturbedness following that comment, sort of seeing like, okay, he's seeing what you're saying. But as he was saying, the client specifically is looking for one of the instruments from the quarter of the patron saint of music, Augustine. Augustine had 4 instruments specifically that he had that were blessed by him and the church, and one of them was in the land of Sire prior to the Mournlands, the mourning happening. To everyone's knowledge, it has not been retrieved since. The other 3 have known whereabouts. This is one that has been lost. And unfortunately, to all of you would know this as well, St. Augustine has also disappeared as well. He has not been confirmed that he is dead, but ever since the mourning has happened, people are unsure if he was stuck in the country or not. So this is sort of a last semblance of what your teacher would have left to his students, not just you, but everyone in general. So you all would feel a slight urge to want to grab this instrument. And from the description from the client specifically, you do know that this instrument is a sakva. So following the explanation of what the instrument is that you're looking for, he does warn the group that there have been warforged that have sort of been wandering the lands in normally not aggressive. These ones sort of seem to attack on sight. And he motions to a pile of warforged bodies that are just sort of stacked over there. It's not excessively big, but there have been some. So he does warn you, just be prepared. Like, we've cleared this out as best as possible. And in addition, he also warns the group that, and you would know this as well, the Mournlands are covered in sentient magic. For some reason, magic in this area, once cast in certain areas, actually becomes alive. It will do its impact, but it gains consciousness and will act upon its own volition. So they have run into less of those as well. And so he does try to warn you just to be careful, because some of the sentient magic is based on high level spells, but those have been few and far between. So following this, he sort of just points you in the direction, gives you some rough guidelines of how to get to the church, and then just sort of lets you go on your way, and does verify one last time that there's nothing else you need.
Elara, noting that there are ward forges that will just attack on sight unseen, would the guard be able to tell them within so many meters or the distance that they've noted generally it's been within like 30 meters or 30 feet, sorry, or 20 feet that they've started to attack? So like if we went a roundabout way, it would work, or it's really like they see you 120 feet away, they're going to start charging at us.
Yeah. So, based on his recollection of the events with the Warforged, it sort of varied slightly, but normally as long as you stay outside of at least 60 feet, they've seen it vary from 30 to 60 feet. So as long as you're outside a range of 60 feet, there really is no concerns that they have seen themselves. But he also does warn that the Warforged in the area are unpredictable. Some aren't hostile, while others are. So he does just warn the group to be cautious. And he does say that while the Warforged are strong, the few that they've encountered have not been too notable of a threat. Lower tiered guards.
Okay. Elara would thank the guard for that info and then look toward Cennius, seeing that he's kind of the self-appointed leader of the group, and say, well, let's get cracking.
Appointed by the church, leader of the group. But then, yes, would listen to the guard again, the one that he's been talking with, thank him for the time he's, like, giving the descriptions and everything, and just get one more, like, track as he goes, and then, I guess, lead on down the way that we're instructed to go.
All right. So the group, as long as there's no other things that need to be discussed, would continue down the path. You can sort of see the remnants of what was once a road, a relatively well-made road as well, but since then you've seen debris has been blown over the top of it, sand, dirt, just ashes have sort of covered the road. You can still follow the path relatively well, but you make your way down the road. There's not much in terms of scenery. Again, it's pretty much a barren wasteland, but there are a few points where there are large rocks on left and right side. So those are really the only things you can see until you would get to town. But as you are leaving, the guard does sort of yell from the back, just be forewarned, there are, and what you hear is swords sticking out of the ground at the entrance to the town/church area specifically. So just it sounds like it's a warning to like just sort of steer away from those, but you're not 100% sure.
As we're walking, is it like the mist, does it cause like us to have impact vision, or can we still see pretty well?
You can still see pretty well. It's more low floating. It's not like a full depth mist where it's like up to your chest and higher. It sort of like stays knees and below. It's sort of a low floating one, but it doesn't really impair your vision. You can see the town from here, but aside from that, again, the only thing along this road is just sort of debris from the war and the battles, and some boulders that are sort of just been there, it seems like, for quite a while.
I think as we're passing, Cennius wants to try and like go forward a little bit to check to make sure there's nothing hiding behind the boulders. Either try and like do perception or like investigate or something that is just not trusting.
How do you want to do this specifically? Do you want to go like try to creep around, crawl over? Like, what are you thinking? They're climbable. It's not like they're huge.
I think they're not huge. He's going to stick within his typical self-interested showmanship and just like take a moment to like run his hand through his hair, and as he like pulls it out, you just see two wings come out as his like angelic heritage comes, and he's just gonna like fly up into the sky and try and look behind the boulders without needing to get close to them.
And from what you can see from that vantage point, the first boulder up on the left, there's really nothing behind it. You see there's just sort of like a pile of like junk or what would maybe be old war material, but there's nothing hiding there. It's just sort of rubbish and garbage that's sort of piled up over time. On the right side, you do see what seems to be an outline of a figure, but it is very closely tucked against the rock. So you're not able to tell exactly what it is. Like you can see there's like a head specifically sitting there, but it's not moving.
Okay. I think on that, he's not going to act on impulse. Like he is, as much as he comes across as no cares, he's very calculating and very thinking about things. He might not be smart, but he is quite wise. I think he's just going to float back to the ground and be like, just so we're all aware, we have a potentially unexpected friend up ahead of us, hiding behind that rock. I'm great for talking. I'm not great for being hit. If someone would rather be the one to investigate, if we go together, someone in between us and I can talk, I'd be happy to do that, but I'm not necessarily the one who should be approaching.
Elara, noting that, would be more than happy to cast Mage Hand and move within 60 feet of the rock, and then have the Mage Hand. That literally makes no sense, Kate. Sorry. Oh man, I'm gonna have to move. Okay, sorry, this is my brain thinking. I will move within 30 feet of the rock, however, trying to be skewed from this body's line of sight. Let's see if that helps, and then cast Mage Hand and see if I can like go over the rock and tap it on the shoulder.
So, following that, you do cast Mage Hand. You have it sort of creep around the corner that was described, and it's sort of just like a claw game almost, where Cennius is just up top, sort of navigating the Mage Hand, be like, no, go down, go down. Also, if this is a human, he can clearly hear the instructions of go forward, go back.
I'll be messaging Elara. Yeah, I thought about that when you were mid-talking. I was like, I'll be using message so that it's not heard as an angel with radiant wings is floating above, being like, to the left! No, more left! I'll be doing it all through message.
Gotcha. Okay. That we'll roll it back. That's fine. So you do get there, and you get the Mage Hand on it, and Mage Hand sort of goes up against the chest, and what do you want to do? Like, it doesn't react. Like, it runs into it, nothing happens.
And with these messages with Cennius, I can reply back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'll tell Cennius what I'm seeing, and then kind of see what he would suggest. Being the church-appointed leader of the group.
Then to respond, if you want to be the church-appointed leader, you are wearing the armor. I made a point to not associate myself. I am happy to betray them and let you be the leader. If we
Also,
need that...
Sorry, as that's happening, Maxcilious and Venbella, you are not hearing any of this. This is all internal conversation between the two of them, so are you guys doing anything? Like, are you guys just sort of like, what is happening at this point?
Yeah, most definitely. I think there's a point. How long has this gone on at this point? I guess
this has been a 2 to 3 minute process at this point, where you see Cennius fly up, you see Elara move forward, then Cennius flies up again.
And
So it's
Cennius
been
would come back down to tell everyone about the person before going back up, so you know someone's there.
I'd be content with that. If more than like 2 minutes went by, I'd be like, is there something else going on here that we need to know about, or?
All right. So back to Mage Hand. Is there anything you do, Elara, at this point?
Man.
So what you've done so far is you've sort of had the Mage Hand go up against the chest specifically. Is there anything else, like, do you want it to, like, move around, like, try to push it one way or another, push up, push down, like, punch it in the head, like, or whatever?
To not throw more chaos into the mix, I think Elara will just say, well, I touched it. Nothing's happening. Might as well just continue on our way. And wait for Cennius to reply back.
Yeah, if you've touched it and you think it's fine, I have no reason to doubt you. Newly appointed leader of the church, feel free to lead on. And he's gonna stay hovering just for like observation, but he's gonna like trail behind the other three to have like a vantage point, but let them be going.
Okay. So following you sort of retracting Mage Hand, because what Mage Hand did is sort of just pushed into the chest and it just sort of like moved it ever so slightly. As you pull it away, Cennius, you would see this from up top. The body, or what you see as like a head for right there, when the force from the Mage Hand stops, it actually falls forward, and all you hear is a loud crash of what would be sort of like metal on metal, like falling onto like just the standard ground there.
Okay. Seems like it was an empty suit of armor. You should be fine. And he'll say it one aloud so that all three of them can hear it.
And following this crash, Maxcilious and Venbella, can you give me a perception check really quick?
13 for Maxcilious.
23.
Okay, Maxcilious, you don't see anything out of the ordinary, but Venbella, following the crash from what is assumed to be a piece of armor, from the rock behind you on the left, from the trash pile specifically, you do see something start to rustle. Not moving quite yet, but like there's definitely movement in it.
I think Venbella would just alert everyone, but keep going.
Elara hearing this would be like, all right, and she's gonna like start doing like her fast walk down the path as I'm sure she is seeing Cennius just like flying above them, but like making sure that everyone else is still keeping up, and Elara would still kind of keep the back of the group, so to speak. So in theory, she'd be the one that whatever's in the pile before would see first.
Understood. All right, so seeing that, if there's nothing else, the group would continue forward. And as you would continue forward, Cennius, are you still flying, or are you back down with the group?
I think at this point, the effect would have worn off, so I have to come back to the ground. There is a small chance this is a sentry bot more than a combat bot, which would imply either something is behind it that it's running from, and we might want to join our metallic friend on its quest to continue not in this direction, or we could engage it for fun. However, none of us are familiar with these Warforged, but they don't look like something easily intimidated to me. I'm inclined we run alongside it.
You are now this robot is just running, and you guys are running behind it towards the city. Again, you're just running along the path. There's really even less boulders than there was now as you're closely approaching the town. And as you get to town, you can see the church that was described to you. And the robot is still plugging along. As you approach the gates specifically, you as a group sort of instinctually start slowing down. The Warforged does not. The Warforged it's sort of keeping that trajectory, just runs straight into the barrier around the city and just continues running. So you just hear a scraping noise as it's just sort of running along this wall, going away from you at this point. And it just continues that path. So you are now at the gates of the city. There's no official doors. It's just an open gate. But as you get closer to the church and see it sort of coming up on the horizon in front of you, you do see this sort of archway of blades where there's blades on left and right, and they're sort of arching up over, and as you get further into it, they get longer and taller.
And does it look constructed, or does it look unnatural?
It looks very unnatural in the sense that it is very out of place. The blades are immaculate. They're made, whoever made them, they are very fine. But it is very much out of place as it's sort of like in the middle of the road. But that's really all you can ascertain from them from this distance.
In the road, like between two buildings, as like we'd have to go underneath it, or we could just like walk around it?
No, so like as you enter town, you'll sort of see the gate opens, and as you get in, like you're sort of in the town square. So it's more like you're in a circular area of buildings. So there's buildings lining this, and this is sort of in the middle of the circle, with the church being on the right side as you are approaching. So you can easily go away from it. It's a very interesting structure, because even in the debris and the collapse of this area, you can see that these buildings were once very refined, like very good architecture, built up to sort of represent the wealth of what Sire was. And this just doesn't quite fit. But yeah, everything in this area is pretty much completely broken down. Even the church, can still tell from the structure itself it was the church, but it is falling apart to a certain extent.
Elara, noting this, will immediately take out her pan flute and just like make a little song and be like, nope, 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 no, nope, nope, no, nope, 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 and we'll start walking the other way. Having just noted the intricacies and interesting nature of this thing, and she doesn't really want to get cut in half by anything, so she's gonna walk purposefully like a far circle around. Are they both like even? If that makes any sense? Like you look at it and it's symmetrical?
Yes. You're talking the blades?
Yeah.
Yeah, the blades are just symmetrical straight up in the ground. They're just centered in the circle, and you probably have like a good 50-60 feet, if not more, from where the blades are to where the entrance of the church is. Like it's not close. You would have to go out of your way to go towards it.
Okay, well, whatever way, Alara's gonna continue walking, hoping that she's like nodding at everyone and playing her little nope, nope, nope song.
Just give me a quick performance check.
Totally. Well, I clearly go to a bard college. 21.
Sounds beautiful. Just
Thank you.
even ad-libbing this whole thing sounds immaculate, as the sounds of your music are just echoing off the broken and shattered homes of what was once a town.
Yep, and I'll just continue waiting for everyone to either follow me or to not follow me, and then I might rethink my decisions.
Venbella is gonna follow Elara, for sure.
All right. So as the group approaches the church, as the guard has already said, they've gone through the church and have cleared it already. So you can see that what once was a very ornate cathedral door has been kicked in, and sort of like the area has been cleared. You see another Warforged body just sort of slumped to the side of the room. But this room is very, very vacant. You can tell that someone or something, potentially in the past 2 years since the war ended, has come to the church and pillaged most of anything that could be valuable.
As we're looking at like what's left and having been told, it was a catacomb underneath the church, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do we see like a direct way down, or like as students of St. Augustine, like do we notice anything that would tie into like his teaching in this church?
You don't see anything particularly about the teachings of the Bard College from St. Augustine himself, but behind the pews and behind the altar in the front, you do see what looks to be just like an open passageway. It could be a stairway down and what would have been up, but you would have to go closer to determine exactly what's behind there.
Cennius will go, well, that must be the way, and just make his way over and start heading on down.
All right.
Elara will still try and be like the caboose, and so keep an eye out on anything, if anything were to pop up as everyone walks down the stairs.
So as the group sort of makes their way through the church, you see, again, just sort of the pews that have been pushed to the side and just all signs of dishevelment as books have been laid asunder in the room, pages laid out. There seemed to have been a fire in the back, but nothing catches your eye or concern in that way. So you make your way to this passageway, and it is indeed a stairway down. And there is a stairway up, but you can, upon quick glance, you can see there's nothing left to go up to. Whatever was upstairs was destroyed when the town was destroyed, what was assumedly 2 years ago.
And as we're heading down, is it like still lit, or does it get pretty dark as we go down?
It is dark. There, you would need some type of light sources available. If not, you would have to find a way to navigate safely.
Yeah, Cennius still being in the front unless anyone wants to take the lead as we descend. Looks at Elara. Will then just cast light on himself. And I know I have to touch it on an object, so I would just do it on my armor. Could I like just make it a halo? Could I give myself a halo of light? Nice. So just puts his like hand up in his like puts his hand above him and just it's like a ring of light going around his head that's producing light so we can all see down here. He's got an image to maintain, and he has a vibe to keep up a public appearance for.
Cennius can take inspiration for that, because that is
Yes!
spot on.
Elara, noting this from the back, will just like make an audible scoff at Cennius doing this, but appreciating the light that he has bestowed within this chamber. As we continue walking down, can I roll a perception check just to see if there's anything that we note that might not be obvious to us?
Yeah.
And
Okay.
as Elara scoffs, he's going to give all of us halos. Just so everyone feels included. Everyone gets their own halo of light.
Oh, Elara, noting this, will say, "Wow, thanks, Cennius." And then I rolled a 12.
Okay. With a 12, again, you can sort of see it's really just a basic stairwell. There's nothing that you can ascertain that's hidden, but you do note that as you get down, the sort of ornate and grandeur architecture of the building sort of comes a little bit more to the forefront as this area has been impacted less by the ravagings outside. So you see the fine craftsmanship of even the bricks going down the stairs. But aside from that, there's really nothing out of the ordinary. It's just a normal stairwell.
Okay. And as we get closer to the bottom of it, Elara, if need be, DM would just be trying to keep like a particular ear out for any like odd sounds. So if there's any type of checks that you would suggest at the very bottom, just let me know.
The group makes their way down the stairs, and as this is happening, you see Cennius sort of like chanting, doing some like hand signs a little bit, and the halo keeps popping between people, so the light keeps shifting back and forth between the group. It doesn't really affect your way down. The stairs are very smooth still, like there's no like changes in elevation with them, but it is just more frustrating for the group because like the light source keeps moving back and forth until
It's
it finally
20
fixes
feet of
itself.
bright light and 20 feet of dim light. Like, if we are outside of 40 feet of light, that's everyone else's problem.
Well, you got to remember you're going down a stairwell, so it's winding a little bit, but it's not an issue. You still make your way down, but as the group is making their way down, you do notice you're going down for minutes. This isn't a quick like 30-second stairwell. You're going down for a little bit. And as you make your way to the bottom, again, nothing's changed. It's all the same. But as you make your way to the bottom, you do see, again, large ornate doorway, probably 12 feet in height and 6 feet wide or so. Elara, based on you being sort of vigilant of what's going on, roll me an investigation check.
A whopping 7.
It's a door.
Guys, this is a really beautiful door. We should just like take a moment just to look at it, admire it, and just wow. And Elara will like lean her body up against it just to see if that does anything to it.
And as you put your hand against it, despite its size and grandeur, it's very light. You don't fall into the room, but the door does start shifting as you put your weight onto it.
Elara will then continue to push the door a little bit. And Cennius, who has the halo right now?
I do. I'll have it like it. We each got a turn with it, and then it became my halo.
Okay. And then I will kind of like gesture towards Cennius since he has the halo to enter into the next room.
Yeah, I'll look at you as you gesture and go, if the church appointed leader who also loves to be the front one would like it, it's all yours. I don't want to take the opportunity away from you, Elara.
Oh no, please, it's my grand gesture towards you. Oh, great one. And let him walk into the room. Also, I just want to note, I have been saying these things like internally that you are the church appointed leader. I have not mentioned this out loud within dialogue, so I'm just
you did once.
Oh, okay. The one time, then again, you do hold things above my head, so
Yeah.
normal.
Anyway, we're gonna definitely leave that conversation in. Yeah, Cennius will walk in and just see, like, being slow to walk and like taking time to like just put the eyes as like that 20-foot edge of dim light hits things, like seeing if he can check anything moving in that part of the light as he's walking in.
Yeah, and as you walk into a shockingly tall room. This is a circular room, probably 120 feet in diameter. No, sorry, not that big. Like 60 feet in diameter. It's very large, but the ceilings are probably 40 feet tall. So you walk in, and as the light sort of starts hitting what it can, the dim light as well, you do see what look to be outlines of extremely large figures going around the room. So you walk in under the doorway, and there's figurines or sort of statues of seated and standing figures around the whole perimeter of this room.
I think Cennius is going to point them out, knowing that he's not the one that pays attention in class. That maybe those who either have paid more attention to like the history or like the personnel classes could maybe check him out and probably have a better understanding than he would.
Elara will go and investigate them per she can see them with Cennius's light.
Oh, okay.
Would either Maxcilious or Venbella be going to other parts of the room? Because I'm kind of having to stay in the middle to give that light. Do we all want to move together, or do you think I should stay in the middle and you both can look at other parts of the room while Elara's looking over there?
I was thinking like other parts of the room kind of split up. Cover more
Yeah.
ground.
Maybe we can go like 4 different parts because there's 4 of us.
I was gonna check the thing in the middle, the white marble. See if I don't know if there's anything to figure out there, but
Would you be going to that while she was checking the statues?
yes.
Okay. So, why don't you roll investigation check as well? This should be lit up to where you can see pretty well around this.
Okay. All right. 8.
Okay, so even with this, you can sort of see, as you get closer, there's nothing much more defined on it. You do see sort of ornate craftsmanship on the pedestal itself. And on the one side, you do note that there is a flute on the one side, on the side that's facing the door. And as you go around, you do see that there is more inscriptions. There's the inscription of a sackbut, a harp, and a lute on the 4 main faces of it. And aside from that, it is relatively barren. As you investigate, are you going to be touching this at all? Or is this just like you're just sort of like taking in what it is?
I feel like the next natural step would be to kind of touch and feel around with it too.
So as you touch, as soon as you sort of lay your hands on the top of it, just sort of seeing what happens, there's a little ring of what looks to be protruding marble at the top of the chambers that just lights up on fire and provides very needed light for the room. Nothing else seems to happen. It just, you sort of activating the pedestal in the middle, lighted up the room so everyone can truly see what all these statues are and what they're holding.
Cennius does not drop Halo.
I would give you inspiration again, but it's already there. So, following the room lighting up, does everyone split, or what's the plan?
I think if Venbella is going to go take the other 3 statues, if she learns anything, Cennius will go take the last set of them.
But aside from the 2 that Elara already saw, the sackbut and the flute, you can see on the other side of the room, sort of mixed in with the other statues, there is one holding a harp and holding a lute as well. The other statues, like I said, they're sort of holding other items related to the arts. So you do have, again, other weapons. You do have someone with a scale, someone with just a scroll with a pen in hand. Aside from that, the ones that seem to stick out would be the musical ones for your group specifically.
In that case, I think Cennius would say, well, thank you, Maxcilious, for the light. Makes my job quite a lot easier here. Do we each want to take an instrument and just start playing at the statues and see what happens?
That sounds good to me.
I would agree.
Sounds good.
Cool.
All right, so each of you would approach a statue. What instruments, just curious, what instruments would you be playing?
Unless anyone has a harp, I think Cennius would take his lyre to the harp one and stand there.
Elara has the lute, so she'll go. There's a lute and flute.
Yeah, there's a lute, a flute, a harp, and a sackbut.
Oh, I'll go stand by the pan flute since I played it earlier.
Venbella will stand by the lute.
And I'll take the sackbut. Although, I don't know what I'd play. Maybe the veal.
So, Elara, sorry, you were already around that, so you would have been the first one to really get to your statue and start playing. And as you start playing, you do hear some kind of mechanism start moving underneath you, still relatively far away, but you do feel something start to happen. Cennius, as you get there, you do see the same similar instance happens as you start playing underneath the statue. The whirring and mechanical noises from underneath the chamber you're in start to get even louder than they were. But aside from that, you do sort of hear some type of thumping from what seems to be outside the chamber. So you can tell it's different than the whirring down below, but there's some loud presence or something very far in the distance, like a good ways away, that is large enough to be drawing your ear to it as well. Following that, Maxcilious and Venbella, same thing. As you sort of are getting closer and closer and closer, and start playing, you can hear the whirring down below get louder and louder and louder until finally the whirring stops. And upon this, what does the group do?
I think Cennius would immediately turn his attention to see if, as the whirring stops, the approaching noise also stops, or check in with that.
Give me a perception check really quick.
Let's roll perception. It was a nat 20 plus 2.
So with that, following the whirring noise as that quiets, you still hear a general thumping from a distance. It is getting closer, not at an alarming rate by any means, but there is still something coming. It seems like towards this general noise. You're not really sure what it is, but it's not increasing in rate. It's sort of just still happening.
Okay.
So following that, does anyone else have anything they would like to do?
Do we notice if anything changes about the room?
Nothing has distinctly changed, but you still hear a very slight whirring as you sort of move away from the statue. You still hear a slight whirring happening from the middle, where the pedestal is.
Elara would then go and investigate the stone pillar in the middle.
Okay. Is everyone coming as a group, or is Elara going alone?
I think Cennius would stand back a bit, just like keeping an eye on the door from where the sound is approaching. Just so that our attention isn't fully divided from that, and let the other three go, especially because Maxcilious has the most understanding of the pedestal already, just from activating it, trusting that the three of them would have it, and then we have someone keeping watch.
So, apologies, let me clarify a little bit. So, you went down the stairwell, and the way you came in, the sound would actually be coming from the opposite side of the room, the pounding noise that you're hearing.
Okay.
So
and
it's not where the stairs are, it's the opposite side. But you're still
wherever the sound is, that's where his attention will be directed.
Okay, understood. Venbella, Maxcilious, anything else you guys would like to do, or you're just going to assist Elara sort of as she moves towards the pedestal?
Yeah, I'm comfortable being in an assist role here, looking out for the sound.
Yeah, we're like the Three Musketeers, going towards the center.
All right. So, Elara, as you approach the center, you still hear a slight whirring, and it actually sounds like it's like something is sliding up. Maxcilious, you would have noticed this previously, that there is the hole in the center of the pedestal itself, and it sounds like something is sliding up that pedestal. And after about 30 seconds, you would hear that it is getting much closer.
Does that then, like, equate to we can physically see something coming up, or we're just hearing this sound and it's just getting louder and louder?
Again, this is a relatively deep chute and a relatively small opening. It's not huge by any means. Actually, it's relatively large. But after about another 30 seconds, you can see from the light in the room shining down that something is coming up.
Just on the off chance that it's like a creepy thing, Elara is gonna get and ready her crossbow in the general vicinity of the hole, but then still stay relatively close to try and perceive what it is as soon as it would come into Lara's vision field.
Well, as you're sitting there ready to attack, you see what appears to be a very ornate sackbut come up from the center. This is pretty much made of ivory, trimmed in gold. It is as ornate as you can possibly get with this thing, to the point of being impractical, to an arguable sense. But it is just sitting there on the pedestal for you at this point.
We have a sackbut! And, Elara will look at Cennius and say, should we pick it up or should we wait? And having noticed that Cennius is just in the back of the room, having not said anything about the sound that you were hearing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, what is it? Sound still like a constant thrum, or has it changed as this got up higher?
It's still a constant thrum, but as you can tell, it's getting closer. It does sound like you would recognize it sort of as metal being like beat into like earth, realistically.
Yeah, there's a sound of metal being beaten into the earth that would be upsetting in a typical situation, let alone a crypt under a church in a land that's full of unliving and undead hatred and wild magic going wherever it chooses. Maybe we should get out of here. And then looking over and be like, Maxcilious, since we all know you're the best performer of all of us, maybe you should hold on to it in case we need to use it in some way. It also seems to be right up your avenue in terms of preferred instrument, but as much as I need an appearance to maintain, I'm never too egotistical to admit that you are a better performer than I, and encourage you to pick it up.
No arguments there. I will grab the sackbut enthusiastically.
And as your hands grasp this disgustingly ornate sackbut, the room's lighting does shift ever so slightly.
That's never good.
As you look up, you start to see what can only be described as magic flowing from the flames. And as you can see, this 10 separate entities of flame that you would probably recognize from the guard's description as sentient magic fall down to the floor, as well as one that sort of appears to be more of a lightning essenced one that hovers above. And with that, we're gonna roll initiative.
9.
Maxcilious got 15.
21.
So, following the flame magic creatures coming from the ceiling, Cennius, you would go first. What would you like to do?
My entire build is utility and support. I'm not meant to be the first person going. He's going to cautiously run up to one of the fire guys just to give it a hit and see, assess if he can hit it. Does it seem like these are going to be easily dispelled, or does it seem like this might be a get out of here quickly situation? That is a 16.
That hits.
Yeah. So he runs up and just kind of flourishes a swipe through this flame creature to see okay, is it more of an illusion and it's going to go away, or how fucked are we if we're not out of here in a matter of moments?
Okay, and
damage wise, it'll be eight points of slashing damage.
okay, so as you approach Lawn Sword Drawn, you sort of just casually swipe through it. There's not much resistance, but as you swipe through, like, you see the magic sort of like dissipate as your sword goes through. Following that, though, you see it just reassemble itself. You can tell it as much as you can tell with magic, it does look like it's hurt as much as magic can be, but it is still regenerating itself, so it's still fine, it's still there. Following this, it actually is their turn, so this one will turn towards you and sort of just like swipe at you with like a flame tendril. 11.
13.
Okay, so it swipes, it just misses over top. You can tell that following this, the other 10 slowly start to sort of close into the center. Not focused primarily on you or the group, but more on just the fact that something is down here at this point. And they all just slowly start approaching. They're not very fast, but they only move about 20 feet in. So you can see that they're slowly encroaching on this area. And while they start moving in, that subtle metal clanging from the back of the room starts to get ever so slightly louder. And following that, you look up, and the lightning-esque item above, you sort of see it start to glow ever so much more, and it releases what Venbella, I believe you would know to be the Shatter spell. It isn't centered down where you are, it's still centered in the top of the room, but the Shatter spell goes off, and a loud explosion of sound just rings throughout the room, and sort of deafens the group for a hot second. Again, no one's damaged by this by any means, but it's just more of a loud thing, and following that, you see this thing start to slowly just move its way down closer to the floor. Following that, though, following that extremely loud noise, that banging is becoming extremely quick and closer at this point.
I think it's trying to bring the ceiling down on us.
And with that, we would go to Venbella.
Cast silence.
Okay. And I'm assuming you're focusing it on the orb above.
Yes.
Okay. And you do this, and the loud noise from Shatter's already dissipated. It's no longer there, but any residual crackling from the electricity above has just silenced itself. So you can still see it, you can still see the image of it up there, but no noise coming from the ceiling at this point. Are you going to move at all?
No, I'll stay.
Okay. Following that, Max, it is your turn.
Can I play the sackbut?
That would be your action, but yes, you can.
I feel like I want to go back to the music, use that as my tool. Potential victory in this. So, should I just like describe what I do? Is that the best?
Yeah, you can do that, and just roll me a performance check as you're describing.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, so like feeling like what we're doing isn't like really working a whole lot. I go ahead and just take this sackbut, which I recently grabbed from the center of the room, and just start like going to town on like a really, maybe we'll say like a traditional bardic tune, but just like improvising with it. I don't know, potentially as a means of like serenading these fire spirit things that have appeared. And I got a 15 for my performance.
Perfect. So, sort of seeing this life or death situation, you find your group, and you decide to lean into what you've found comfort in your whole life, and that's playing music. Except as you start to play the sackbut, you feel magic sort of flowing through it, and as you start to create this melody, you feel a shock wave emanate from your melody specifically, and the shock wave sort of emanates out from your instrument itself, passing through your team, as you've identified them as allies, I would assume, as you're traveling together. And you can see that all of the sentient magic is just sort of pushed back another 10 feet back against the walls of the room. Not damaged, just sort of pushed back further. But doing that, you do sort of feel, as you continue to play, the effects of the instrument itself are starting to dull ever so slightly. So now these things are about another still 50 feet away from 40 feet away from everyone still.
So the one that went past me would be pushed back to where I'm at then, right?
Correct, yes.
Okay.
If that finishes Max's turn, I think Elara would very vehemently say, "We should go while Max is playing the sackbut. Let's go. Woo!" Try and like shimmy her way towards the door, because she knows that this could get ugly very, very fast, and we should shimmy out of here.
Are you going to move?
Yeah, Elara will move, take her action to, take her movement to move towards the door, and then the action itself to dash. So get as close as I can to the door, and still shimmying everyone while she's dashing there.
All right. So seeing that, you guys are confused yet probably agree that she's just leaving, whether you're coming or not at this point. So with that brings us back to Cennius.
Yeah, I think even before Venbella cast Silence, his thought was, oh, that thing is trying to shatter the ceiling and bring it down on us. So I think he very much is going to... also, he's not going to dash. He's going to take his turn to head with Elara over to the door, but he's going to hold his action for, like, if the other two follow, he'll then try and, like, cast a spell if anything comes after them. So, like, he's going to make it to the doorway, but then hold before leaving, and then save his action. And I'll say it'll be for I'll do a second level. I'll hold a second level shatter, and then if nothing happens, I waste a spell slot. But at least I know my friends are safe.
Okay, real quick, just so you're holding a shatter in case what happens?
Essentially, like, as soon as the other two run past, anything that's coming after them, I'm going to hit with shatter.
Okay, perfect.
Mm-hmm. And if nothing runs past, the intention then would kind of be, like, close down the archway we run through, sealing in anything coming for them.
Understood. And you've moved towards the door with your movement as well, yes?
Yeah.
Okay. So following that, so this is all happening extremely quick, but again, as a reaction to you playing the sackbut, that baning has increased even further, and after being pushed back, the living, what you could probably describe as burning hands at this point, are again going to start moving in, but not all towards the middle. They're sort of just moving in random directions at this point, not really focusing on the group at this point. And they're not attacking, they're just trying to sort of spread out throughout the room, but they are still approaching the group, just not as an organized of a pattern. But as they're doing this, you see about 10 to 15 more start coming down from the ceiling. They're on the outskirts of the room still, so they're not close to you, but they're still coming down. And as these things reach the ground, that pounding has become extremely intense, and all you see is a immense six-bladed sword come busting through the back wall. And what you can see from there is, the best that you could describe it is a large warforged automaton, almost monstrous in size. He's not filling the room, but he is halfway, if not taller, up the ceiling. As I said, he has a large six-bladed sword, and he is slowly making his way through this entrance that he sort of just beat his way through. Technically, Maxcilious, you'd be the closest. Just from the noise alone, you would jerk back to look and see, and you can see what wings on its back that very, very closely resemble the blades that were in that center of town as you entered town. So with that, this thing is coming in and it is attacking with its sword against all these spirits, since they are pretty much the main thing in front of them, and there's a monstrous amount. So that is 27 to hit with...
I was gonna cut words it, but that's not gonna even get it below a 20.
It does... Oh boy. Give me 1 second. There it is. No, that's D8. It does 39 points of damage against the 2 flames that are in front of it. And pretty much repeats that against 2 more that are on the outside. But it has exhausted its movement sort of getting to that point. So it is now, it's sort of in the room, but still making its way in. So following that, Venbella, it is your turn.
I don't know what to do. Can I just run away? Okay. Venbella runs away. Okay, action to dash to run even further away.
So with that, you would pretty much be able to make it from the pedestal using your movement and dash action and get into the stairway up at this point. So now the situation is that you are with Elara, while Cennius is sort of by the doorway getting ready to leave, following, hopefully, Maxcilious exit from the room. And that brings us to your turn.
Yeah, we're going to go ahead and run and dash like my life depends on it, as it likely does.
Okay. And again, you're by that center monument in the room itself. So you sort of follow the same footsteps that Venbella did just before you. So she's just steps ahead of you, and you are able to get through the doorway. As they do, Cennius, your spell, you're in the stairway, you release it, and it pretty much does exactly what you were looking for. Can you roll damage really quick on it?
Yep. Does the wall get to save, or do I get to do regular damage?
Regular damage, and we'll see exactly what ends up happening with it.
I got 15.
Okay. So you cast it, and again, the group here is just sort of echoing through this stairway going up at this point. Just a loud crackling of noise and explosion just of sound waves itself that does enough damage to collapse the doorway. It's not the whole wall coming down. You can assume that there's enough rubble there to where it would have to, whatever is trying to come through would have to break through it after a little bit, but it's not solid. So just from your perception of that happening, you know that that is not going to stop whatever just broke through that back wall for long. And at this point, I'm assuming we are still running, yes?
Yeah, I think
We can just
Cennius plans to just continue dashing. Yeah.
Yeah, no, we can just drop initiative, and you guys can just describe the sense of urgency as you're making your way up the stairs.
Elara, still wanting to be at the back of the group, is gonna try and like usher people or usher everyone, be like, okay, go, 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 go. And then to try and just like speed run up the stairs, the fastest she's ever run in her entire life, being a dragonborn. And will just continue running out of the church. Hopefully everyone like following the general path they came in, but shouting to remind everyone, just avoid the blades, and go around the statue or the whatever thing we saw in the very beginning.
And
at least that's
as
what...
we get to the plaza, avoiding the blades, I think Cennius is going to send off another shatter and try and interrupt that gateway in case it's any sort of like it can crawl out of there too. He's just going to try and knock that down. Probably not on the blades itself because blades are strong, but maybe like on the ground underneath it, hoping it like gets off center or knocked over or something.
Okay.
Elara will do the same thing.
Anyone else want to cast Shatter with us?
Yeah, I'm Maxcilious will join in too, just for increased success.
Same with Venbella.
We assemble our band. For a brief moment, the four of us stop to play a band piece together with some nice singing, some nice harmonization with our instruments, and we all just cast Shatter.
just hold on. So as you make your way up the stairs, again, nothing has changed up top. You make your way up, you get through the church. As you're going through the kicked down cathedral doors, you look to where the blades were, and the blades are actually gone.
Oh, no.
There's a hole where the blades were, assuming that whatever this was sort of burrowed its way down through there, and that's, you can assume, what busted through the wall. Are you still casting Shatter, all four of you, on this hole?
Yeah, because now it has a way out backwards, and I don't want that either.
Okay, everyone roll 3d8. Or just cast Shatter. Either way works.
9.
11.
I got 15.
Okay. So you get out of the cathedral and you all just whip out your instruments. Maxcilious, you're still using this sack butt that you just recently received. And the combined effort of these four shatters arguably is just breaking eardrums of anyone in the vicinity. You're immune to this effect since you are the ones casting it, but you see you cast it in the hole specifically, and it just collapses in on itself. It is sealed. There is still a hole there, but you can tell that probably the next 30 feet underground have just collapsed in on itself. So nothing is coming out of that hole anytime soon. Hearing this commotion as you are just performing a concert to this extent in an abandoned town, the two guards actually that were at the camp heard the commotion of the monstrosity that has broken through the cellar wall at this point, and pretty much run up to you being like, what's going on?
Well, the archway appears to have either grown a body or have been a creature this entire time and is currently rampaging through a underground tunnel, probably coming to kill us all. So if we would like to live, we could always run away. We intend to. You can join us. And Cennius is not, like, he's having this conversation on the go and is going to keep running as he's informing the guards.
And sort of taking it a minute to absorb what you said, and I'm assuming everyone's still reflecting Cennius's movement, just keep moving. Sort of seeing this and comprehending what's happening. The guards sort of questioning Cennius at first just because of the sometimes exuberant sarcasm that comes through, are looking forward and back and notice the blades are gone from the center of town as well. And sort of in a mirror image of you guys running to town, you now are just hauling from town with 2 guards in tail running back to camp. And as you approach camp, you can see that like the tent sort of, assuming your success just based on how long you were gone, they already have started deassembling the tent. Most things are packed, but all of you rush into the teleportation area, and pretty much you get there, and the mage rights are sort of questioning why everyone's running. So, what happens here?
As we run up, Cennius looks at Maxcilious and goes, "I'm gonna give you something the church can't," and like gives him a little like strum of his lute and gives him a bardic inspiration to hopefully keep it down on the way back. And then looks at the House Orion staff and be like, "As always, we were sent to retrieve something that is going to benefit someone and not any of us nor the country. And now the thing that was maybe watching over is coming for us. I'm not sure how teleportation magic works, but if we could do it quickly, we'd all be much safer."
And mage rights look at you sort of questioningly, and then the guards sort of come in seconds after you finish, sort of just white, so knowing what's happening behind them. And the mage rights sort of perk up real quick, and they're like, and everyone begins casting automatically. As this is happening, the mage right from the corner of the room that handed Maxcilious you the bucket previously runs up, shoves the bucket into your chest, and sort of everyone just gets pushed into the funnel, and you are snapped back into the Church of the Silver Flame.
We have to make a Constitution save.
And everyone makes a Constitution saving throw.
An 11.
5.
And then, Maxcilious, you can add 6 to yours.
20 then.
So Maxcilious, you come out of the portal first, and you are feeling fine this time. There's nothing wrong. Cennius, your stomach is upset. You can sort of see why Maxcilious sort of had a negative reaction last time, but you are fine as well. Venbella, same with you. You're feeling just pretty much the same as you were. Elara, unfortunately, whether it's a combination of the stress from almost being killed by a large Warforged monstrosity or the teleportation spell itself, you just rush over, yank the bucket from Maxcilious, and proceed to unload whatever is left in your stomach into the bucket. But following that, hearing the commotion, you see the Cardinal come back into the room, sort of expecting you would be returning around this time. He's sort of been waiting in anticipation. And Aberstane in the room sort of is like, what's going on? Why are we all in a rush? Why is everyone back here? And the guard sort of runs up, explains the situation, but Aberstane, more importantly, sort of brushes off the guard and goes up to you, Maxcilious, and sees that you have the instrument in question, and just sort of tells the mage rights to clean up, the guards to clean up this area, and ushers you back into his office. Is there anything you guys would say and or do as you're making your way back down this hallway?
I think Cennius is going to keep it quiet for the moment and let Maxcilious take the lead, as he's the one that's most interested right now, but still paying very close attention to the wording of everything the Cardinal says.
And that's fair. Again, similar situation. You're ushered into the room. You sit. The door quietly closes behind you. Aberstane, again, just lets it loose and is just very frank and upfront with you guys, and congratulates you on completing your task. He sees the sack butt is in your possession, and upon seeing it and sort of just inspecting it very quickly, he takes out 4 very large sacks of gold that are addressed and have a seal on them from the noble family of Gaiman, so Gaiman. And all of you would know this is one of the most well-known families in the land of Thrain, specifically in the Flamekeep capital. So from the size alone, you can tell this is a large sum of money. He congratulates you on completing this and asks you to hand over the instrument for use at the event the client has in mind in the future.
Before Maxcilious does, Cennius will pop up and be like, while we appreciate the gold, I believe there is also the written promise of a favor owed. Before we give you our half, can you finish upholding your end and let us know what that might entail?
And upon this request, Aberstane chuckles, knowing that Cennius, you'd be the one to sort of point out this very open-ended clause in the contract, and he sort of says aloud, looking past you, let them in, and the two people, Elara, you saw on your way out of the church, come in, and again, you would see this taller man, about 5'10", with long black hair, walk in with this short and a half-foot woman, long auburn hair, deep green eyes, potentially mixed blood, and again, the sire crest on the one arm, and Cennius, you being in town most frequently being at the bars, seeing people, just from side conversations, you would know this is Sir Delios Gaiman, the next in line for the Gaiman family. And they walk in, introduce themselves, and he proceeds to explain that the open-ended request on this was sort of meant to benefit the group, not set one individual. But if there's anything, and he says anything with emphasis that they can help you with, it just needs to be discussed with him going forward. And you would have the family's full support. And he emphasizes the family, knowing that it's not just him, it's a whole bloodline that would be helping you with this endeavor.
I think Cennius isn't going to try and negotiate anything now. Since that has been said and witnesses are present, he knows it's much more important to have an open-ended contract agreement than to have anything specified. But he will look at the woman there and be like, we are so sorry that we couldn't keep your town even safer than it was when we got there. A little bit of destruction befell it, and I know how hard it can be to lose one's homeland, and we are sincerely apologetic for the damage that came about in retrieving this for you.
And she looks at you in sort of a questioning, not in a negative way, but sort of appreciative of the sentiment for someone that you don't know. And thanks you again for sort of providing her with this small piece of her home that she remembers from growing up. And again, begins to tear up slightly, saying how this really is the last piece of her childhood that she has left, and she can't wait for it to be played at the wedding. And in which, at that point, Maxcilious, being the one to play this in the catacombs of the building, knowing what happens when you play it, would you say anything specifically?
There's apparently a little bit of magic, maybe, still in there. There is definitely a thrilling effect that affected some magical things while we were extracting it from the catacombs of this church. To be aware of.
And she looks questioningly at you, but nods in approval, and Sir Delius chimes in saying, understood, we will make sure that the mage rights have a very good look at it prior to use at the festivities. And with that, if the team has no further questions, Aberstane sort of stands up, again, thanks you. Sir Delios comes, shakes all of your hands, as well as Katrin Onder, which she introduces herself as the new princess of the Gaiman family. And with that, you are handed each a sack that has 2,500 gold pieces in it for each of you.
Nice.
And with that, Aberstane gets himself again more professionalized and ready to leave, and sort of politely ushers you out of the room to where Zerdelios again thanks each of you individually and says, just so you guys know, down the road at the Prancing Pony, the tavern on the left, there is drinks, and I've made them aware of your coming, and you will not have to pay for anything for the rest of the night.
Well, that's mighty kind of you. Thank you so much.
I think after all that, we deserve a drink. Let's go to the Prancing Pony.
I bet the Prancing Pony is a great bar. Tavern.
It's gotta be the best tavern in the land. There's no way anything could be better than the Prancing Pony.
Do they have actual ponies?
We don't have to pay for anything for that. We could probably each steal a pony from them, and they can't make us pay for it.
You could all buy a horse. You have 2,500 gold each at this point.
We are poor college students.
Not anymore.
Nice.
With that, the group, again, just sort of takes their currency, secures it very tightly in their belongings, and leaves the church. And that is where we will leave it for this story.
Nice. Well, thank you everyone for playing. Audience, although you're not with us, let's all give a virtual applause for Dan for his first time DMing, but also for Victoria Kleeman and Josh Morano for joining us in their first game of D&D and doing such a lovely job doing it on podcast and not at all threatening way of doing it. They were great. So please join us in thanking them. As well as we would like to thank you, audience. I know that this is a new format episode. We cannot promise regularity with our bonus action episodes, but hey, we made the first one, so look at that. Applause to all of us. And again, this is made in sort of awareness of Music Therapy Appreciation and Awareness Week. And so next we'll kind of have like a discussion about what music therapy is, but if you don't care, there will be some links below where you can find resources, and you're welcome to stop listening now. If you do care, we hope you care, please listen to the rest of the episode. But in terms of the actual D&D gameplay part, that is where this episode will end. Yeah, so welcome to the actual advocacy and discussion part of the episode, listeners who have stayed on with us. We appreciate you being here, and we appreciate that you might want to get to know more about what we do and why we chose to do Oops All Bards. Part of it because it's a fun joke, but also part of it is because a lot of like the in-universe bard description is kind of what we all do with our jobs. Like bards use magic, the magic of music to heal people and all of that. And our jobs across 4 very different environments are using music in therapeutic means to help people. Does anyone who remembers it better than me want to give like the AMTA music therapy definition?
No, but we can give our little elevator speech.
I still haven't perfected mine, so you can go, Kate.
Yeah.
So typically I own my own business out in Colorado, and in Colorado we're able to be on waiver services for 4 Medicaid waivers, 1 adult, 3 children. So when I respond to referrals and I get families reaching out for services, I generally just say that if you work with a physical therapist, an occupational therapist, speech therapist, a psychologist, a school counselor, within therapeutic work with your child, those types of goals and objectives that you work on with them, we can address those in music therapy. The way that we do that is just through music. And so if you're working on like coping skills, instead of working on X, Y, and Z, maybe in psychotherapy, we work on writing songs or creating playlists and like things that are more tangible to parents or to individuals that I work with who don't have as much music therapy experience. That's generally what I say. And also, we're fun therapists. A lot of the times people don't know that we're doing work, so to speak. And so that's a really great buy-in. If I say that I'm a lot of fun. and I bring a lot of cool instruments to try, and we do lots of fun things. They're like, cool, come on over. So that's my wonderful buy-in speech.
Nice. Yeah, so you mentioned that you own your own business, and I know you work with a lot of different populations. Josh and Victoria, do you guys want to let us know a bit about your populations you work with?
Sure. Well, actually, I'm fairly similar to Kate, likely, because I also work with waiver people. But in Wisconsin, slightly different, but probably a little bit similar too. So, um, I actually primarily, or not even primary, well, yes, I can say primarily work with kids. I do have a few adults that I've worked with too on a separate waiver, but um, yeah, so these are kiddos with intellectual developmental disabilities. It's pretty wide net that they spread with this waiver, but really cool work. I in particular do all in-home work, so this is like me going into the homes of all these people as well, um, which I think can lead to some pretty unique situations, and ultimately I think is a really good thing because what we do with just like with any other therapy, the idea is that we become useless one day, or that at least that the client doesn't need us in that particular situation. So in terms of generalizing what we work on in sessions, it just seems to be a little bit easier when you're like in the home of that person. So that's kind of the cool part of what I do. But besides that, elevator speech wise, I liked yours, Kate, and I say a lot of similar stuff. But I also say, because this is something that's come up, especially in my current position, that the person or the child or whoever it is doesn't necessarily need to be like an inherent or it's like a clear lover of music, or like they've tried out an instrument before. Like it could be someone who maybe you wouldn't expect music even, but there are like aspects and elements within music that could actually be really helpful. So yeah.
Awesome. I was doing independent contracting, kind of similar to Josh and Kate, for the past, I guess that was 2 years. But this year, during the school year, I started working for a special education cooperative in Southern Illinois, and we service 25 school districts, I think, but I don't go to all of those. I go to like 10 or so different locations. So I'm working with intellectual and developmental disability kiddos in their schools, and I go off of their IEP goals, individualized education plan. If you know what that is. I don't make my own goals. I just go off of everyone else's. In Illinois, we don't have licensure, unfortunately.
Not yet. We're getting it in like a month.
We'll see.
Is also should be noted too that in Colorado we don't. We don't have licensure. We don't have licensure protection. I don't know how we got on the waiver. It's been like a whole process. But I know for us, we didn't have to get licensure protection in order to get on the waiver. Though you have to be able to show, like, if I don't work all with Medicaid clients or waiver clients, it's probably like 50% of my caseload, and the girls that contract with me, their caseload. We have to be able to show our MTBC and our certification if we ever got like audited, but it's not something that's like super regulated, though I don't hear really of anyone like abusing the system, which is good, knock on wood. But other places that I work with, like I do some schools, do a fair amount of schools and some day programs, and then like some private clients too. But all of those are like different, and funding sources are hard. But moral of the story is, state of Illinois could get us on their services if they wanted to, without licensure.
Yeah, and to finish it out, I also am in Illinois. I'm in the Chicago area. I work in the like most specialized of the three. Like I don't have people I see in many places. I just work at one place, and it's an inpatient residential mental health and behavioral health center. So I work a lot with people who have different like trauma backgrounds, or people who have different just different behavioral concerns or different mental health diagnoses, and work with them in a way more similar to a regular talk therapist than maybe Kate or Josh would with their younger kids, but using a lot of the same skills that Kate talked about. Like, instead of just talking about how they're feeling, kind of like writing down a song that would express how they're feeling, or doing like improvisation on the concept of anger and how it like sounds and plays differently to be angry at like your mom than it is to be angry at like a class you're taking, and kind of understanding the differences in that like specific intensity of emotion, because for a lot of the people I work with, they don't have the language or skills to really understand that. They're not quite at a place where like they've grasped some of those intense emotions and like more in-depth understanding. So giving them a non-verbal way to understand it is very important for them, and allows them to start expressing it in a verbal setting by using a different non-verbal method. Yeah. What are some things that, because we don't want this to go on forever, but like what are some methods or things that you find are like the most helpful for either an individual client, again, not breaking hip or anything, but like an individual client, or just with like people broadly that you work with? What do you all think is the most impactful thing intervention-wise you're able to do?
I'd say with like close to 100% of the kids I work with, we're usually focusing on like base level regulation, like when we're starting the session, and that's usually like I said, like 99% of the time I start there. And typically, particularly, I found the element of rhythm and beat, or whatever you want to call it, within music is a great place to start with that. And neurologically, there's a lot of stuff happening there. Just like that alignment, there's all entrainment, where you're like on a physical level almost connecting with that beat, and what that does is allows the client to have that organization. Whereas like before, maybe I came in and we were kind of dysregulated or disorganized. That kind of creates that organization. We're able to come together and actually start working together toward whatever the goal is at that point. So, kind of what I found.
Victoria, you seem to also like a really easy, ready to go answer for that one.
Oh, I was just to say I co-treat with speech pathologists a lot, which is really fun. So kind of along with rhythm, but also just repetition. So like if you think you're singing or playing something too many times, you're not, because it takes so many times for kids that have difficulty communicating or processing language to process what you're doing. But once they get it, once you do it, however many times you have to repeat it, they've got it. I don't know if you want me to go into more detail on that.
Okay, yeah, go as much as you want.
So we use AAC devices, which are like augmentative communication, or like if you see someone with an iPad and it has little pictures on it, and then they press it and a word pops up. So if I'm not co-treating with the speech path, which happens as well, I'm like playing guitar, pressing the buttons, modeling for them how to do it. And so like, let's say I want them to ask for more music. I'm modeling more music and I'm playing their song, and then I'll stop until they can tell me they want more music. And I don't know where I'm going with that. Anyway, it's really fun. It's really awesome to be able to help kids communicate. And sometimes I feel like I'm annoying because I repeat myself so many times, but in the end, it's worth it.
I feel that. I also co-treat a bit with our speech therapist, like on with the kids we see explicitly like social anxiety, and where it comes into like social communication disorders, and like how we can build up the same sort of fluency at a different level. But it is a lot of fun being able to co-treat, and I feel like our domain allows for it a lot more than some other domains who are like very much like, oh, only do physical or only do certain things. I feel like all of the creative art therapies really allow for a level of co-treat that some other people don't really get to experience. We got anything, Kate?
Yeah, I was gonna say basically bouncing off of like everyone's ideas. I basically start almost all of my sessions with some type of sensory integration or um, just sensory experience in general. So that is either looking like doing like drumming. My internship site supervisor trained at CSU, so she's not an NMT therapist, but she learned a lot of NMT things. And so we would always call it modified TIMP. I don't remember what TIMP stand for, but like doing the drumming and having it go like crossing midline and all of that. I do that basically with all of my groups. I work with preschoolers and kindergartners. I work all the way up through day programs to like individuals in their 60s and 70s. It's just like a really good way to get everyone even just oriented to the group. And then one of my other favorite things to do when I learned when I was in RBT in grad school was pairing a physical sensation with also our auditory sensation. So like Stephanie Lovel's music for kiddos is pretty common within, working with kiddos anyway. She has a great song called Bear Hug that I basically do with like all of my kiddos within at least a session a week, if not more, to give them like a physical, like either joint compressions or just physical input with doing a bear hug or giving a kabasa massage. That's generally one of my readied ones. And then as you saw, bell songs, I do that a crap ton, like probably more than I should. So I was telling Victoria and Sean earlier, but Josh, this is Carry On My Wayward Son, or notated for bells or boomwhackers.
And Kate, for the people that are listening to our podcast and can't see the giant poster board you just showed us, what does it look like?
It's a giant poster board with colors of the rainbow, dots that are associated with colors of boomwhackers, which are long plastic tubes pitched to a C scale, or just like desk bells. But that is something I do quite frequently because clients can bang on a boomwhacker as hard as they want or generally tap on a bell within certain constraints. But it works on like self-expression. I have some of my autistic clients that really, really take to colors. And so to work on some of their like reading comprehension or color association, or deviating from a set schedule of being in the typical rainbow color range. That's been really great for just generalizing their skill set. And I normally do it on a small piece of paper. But for groups, it works on some attention and some self-expression and group cohesion too. So one thing that I've noticed I've had 2 interns, going to have a third in the summer, is that teaching them to not reinvent the same thing, or teaching them to reinvent the same thing, but not continually try and find new things can be really, really great. So using this type of recreative and compositional method and expanding it to focus on multiple different goals. So that way you're not saying, okay, I need to memorize 60 songs for this next week or learn 60 songs, because that's so many. You sometimes use 10 songs within one session. I think that that's been also like a really great skill set to learn as a therapist. Now that most of us have been practicing for a couple of years, is just not reinventing the wheel, trying to figure out how you can explore the things that you know, because we do so much more than just play music. There's so much more that I think sometimes when speaking with parents like that can be really hard for them to understand.
Yeah, and I think something that we've all kind of hinted at but haven't really fully talked about is the training that we had to go through. I know, Victoria, you mentioned instrument proficiencies, and Kate, you've mentioned internship and supervisors, and we all have to do practicums. So I can kind of just give a rundown of the overall process, and then we can all kind of talk a little bit about our own trainings or like areas and what drew it to where we're at or whatever applies. We're all kind of just freestyle ranting here. we literally just finished recording that episode, and I don't know how long that episode is gonna be, but it took us 2 hours and 45 minutes to record. So this is brain post that. So listener, thank you for being here. Yeah, so we all went to the same college together. We all went to a college together, and that's how we know each other. That's how we kind of met. And then from there, all went on to different equivalency and equivalency master's programs, which is like allowing you to have a background in music specifically, and in our case, all of us, music and psychology, and going on to then get your MTBC, which is your music therapist board certified certification that allows you to practice as a music therapist in the United States. And we did that through equivalency programs, which are some classes that you take that are just on top of your regular undergraduate music courses that teach you more of the clinical skills, as well as put you in different environments so that you can see the clinical practice of different practitioners. Like I know for myself, I did 1 term in hospice, 1 term in a setting not too far off of where I am now, and then 1 term in a setting very similar to Victoria's where it's like working with children in schools, and then 1 term just with like an independent contractor. So it was like a lot of different stuff that you get to see, and it also kind of allows you a survey of what the field is, because I feel like everyone kind of enters like having their own idea of what music therapy is, and then kind of realizing, oh, this is what it can be versus what it is. And so after you do all of your practicums and all of your schoolwork, you then have to go and do your internship, which is typically a 6-month internship, but it's really based on hours more than it is on actual time. And so it's like, what, 1,200 hours? 1,200 hours. I'm getting the nod from Kate, who's the only internship supervisor here, so she should know. It's 1,200 hours, and that's direct one-on-one practice with clients. Like at the start, the first couple of months will be you and your supervisor kind of co-leading sessions, or like you observe the session, and then it transitions to like you're leading the session with them kind of watching, and then at the end you're just kind of like on your own leading it like you will when you're out in the real world. And then after you do your internship, you then need to sit for the board exam, which is a exam that is 200 something questions, that really looks at how well you understand principles of music theory, how well you understand performance, how well you understand the clinical like implications of practice, how well you understand different therapeutic and psychological things, and then how well you understand like kind of like random group dynamics. Like, oh, if this is the situation for a client and here's a case study we present you, would it be appropriate to use this intervention or this instrument? And it kind of puts all of that together into one test to really gauge your competency, and then if they deem you competent, you then find out immediately, which is nice. There's no waiting period. It's like a 10-second waiting period. You then find out if you passed or not, so you don't need to wait forever. But yeah, is there anything I kind of forgot? Oh, in terms of instrument proficiencies, kind of like how all of our bards today had lots of instruments, we need to be proficient in piano, voice, guitar, and then to an extent percussion. And then beyond that, I know we all have our own instruments that we play as well. So when you see like Victoria walking in with a guitar, it's not just she's the guitar lady. It's like someone that had to learn how to play the guitar and use it therapeutically, learning like different strumming patterns that aid with sleep and relaxation, learning different like ways that you could perform, like if we're sticking with the guitar, play it still, but like in a different way that's not going to be upsetting to someone that has sensory needs, or someone that is like in hospice and needs it at a different pitch or dynamic. It's a lot of training on how to use the instrument therapeutically and not just how to play it like a good musician, which I think is something that often gets overlooked by people outside of our field. Anything on that topic you would all like to add?
Aside from proficiencies, internship in general, it's also important to remember that there's 2 routes to go. I think, if I'm not mistaken, did we all go university affiliated routes?
I did.
Mine was complicated. I think essentially, yes, I did.
So, or a hybrid of both, kind of whatever that looks like. So there's nationally rostered, which you go on the website, it's a very like standard protocol, and I would say a large bulk of music therapy interns go that route, and you apply, and it can be a pretty intense experience, from having applied to some myself, and I'm sure we all did. Or you could go the university affiliated route, which can still be intense. However, the relationship is between the site and the school itself, not every school nationally. So you can kind of cater it a little bit more. That is what my internship site is and will hopefully continue to be. And it's where I did mine too, because it's during COVID, things got really, really hairy, as I know all of
Yeah.
us know. Um, and so, university affiliated, from my experience, having been a student and then now having two previous interns, it just creates a lot of flexibility, which can be really, really great. Has its pros, has its cons, but that's also something to keep in mind too.
Yeah. Oh, Victoria, go ahead.
Well, I wanted to add that most of our internships are unpaid.
Yes.
Some
That's a
people
very
get
big point.
some people get small stipends. I feel like a lot of hospice internships get stipends, but I don't know about you guys. Mine was unpaid, and that took me 9 months because I was doing like 27 to 30 hours at internship and then also working so that I could pay my bills. So it's a long road, but worth it.
Piggybacking off of that a little bit, I know with Sean and I's program, we went to the same grad school as well. We were able to work it out with our classes where if we were taking out our grad loans through FAFSA, through the government, we were able to budget essentially to then get additional funds from FAFSA to say pay for our 2 or 3 credit internship class that we had to take, and then be able to take some of the money and help that as a means of living. That is one hack that Sean and I learned about, I
And
guess.
are currently paying off forever.
True, we are paying them off. However, with that assistance in mind, I know undergrad's completely different because the cap is like half of what we can take, if that, in grad school. But it's the only reason I was able to finish in 6 months is because I was able to take some of that loans and use it to live, which is
Yeah.
great.
Very much same. And I think, Kate, something you mentioned, or something you kind of said that triggered for me was the difference between university affiliated and national roster, is that there is a list of competencies that every music therapist needs to present. It's put out by the CBMT, which is the certification board for music therapists. And there's a level of practicing at the entry level, and then there's a level of practicing at the master's level. And in a university affiliated internship and a national roster internship, those are being checked constantly, like your supervisor's making sure you're meeting those requirements. But then something that the flexibility of a university affiliated is that you kind of get to take a bit more time, like while doing those competencies, to see what else there is to it. So like I know a lot of my internship allowed me some mental health work, which is how I can now do it confidently. Where like maybe someone that only had an independent national roster one would just be like, here's the cookie cutter program that we provide because it's what they have to do to get through the just slew of interns that want to enter the field, which is a good problem to have. But I don't know the stats most recently, but I know a couple years ago, the interns hoping for a spot heavily outnumbered the spots open. And so it was, especially right before the pandemic, and then all of us kind of got screwed over by it, like an extremely competitive environment that then got like even more competitive when they started making cuts to sites that could take people. And also that the test is really hard. So if you are in this field already, or if you are entering this field, do not be discouraged if you don't pass on your first time, or your first internship site rejects you. Like it is a competitive entry field on the internship and certification process. So that we all feel you on that.
Yeah, I know what helped me is that I did mine during COVID. I started during June of 2020. So it was not at the caseload that I think my supervisor nor I would have preferred it at. It grew over time, but initially it was pretty tiny. And we were also in private practice, so we would drive everywhere. She would just ask me questions. She had a practice exam. We would sit and we would talk it over. And that was super beneficial. And with both of my interns, I've mentioned that the sooner you start slowly chugging along with something, even if it's a book, it's a study group, it's looking over your past course materials, it makes it a lot less daunting. and trying to find someone who just took the test can also be super, super helpful in terms of being like, here's how we may see it clinically. Here's how they're going to word that in a test question. Because there's two different ways to talk about it. At least what I've found, especially with my previous intern just starting to take the exam within the next couple weeks.
There's a very academic bias in the wording on the exam that sometimes you need to reroute your mind around.
Something I did to prepare for the exam was like I took, I don't know, whatever practice exams I had available. And then after I took it, I think I went and sat with a friend in the library and we would be like, okay, we got this one wrong. Why did we get it wrong? Like, what answer did we put? Why did we put that? And what's the right answer? Why is that the right answer? Just like going back and forth, like, oh yeah, because you wouldn't do this, you would do X, Y, and Z. And that's actually really helpful because then when you're taking the exam, you're like, oh, this is really similar to that other question that so-and-so and I were talking about, and I know the right answer.
Yeah.
I think piggybacking off of that thought as well, reading over review of literatures when you have access to a whole library through your undergrad or through your grad school can be so, so helpful. Because I remember when writing my thesis, it was just like, here's all these like other ideas, reading through review of literatures just to get here's an info dump on it. So finding different populations that like 3 of us work with intellectual and developmental disabilities. There's a lot that you can learn in there. However, if you go into NICU music therapy, there are going to be fundamental different things that you need to focus on. If you go into hospice, you'll still use your skill set, but it's fundamentally different music therapy in a way that you don't necessarily think about when you're an intern. So that's another piece of advice I've tried to give.
And that the test isn't just like the NICU music therapy test. It's the blanket certification exam. And if you only studied your domain, get ready to pay for the test again and spend another 2.5 hours taking the test again. Kind of moving past the test, I think if we'd like, we could all kind of talk about paths to jobs, or we could just kind of give for those in the audience who this is the first time they're hearing of the profession, or for people that kind of just like want to know just a fun part of it, like what are some highlights you think to being a music therapist that maybe people don't get to know about, like because they don't know many of us? What are some things you'd share just about the profession just being a lot of fun and exciting?
Path to music therapy, mine was, I'm very lucky, 110%. My internship supervisor, as my husband is saying yes in the background, my internship supervisor was looking to expand her practice. And so throughout internship, she approached me at 3 months and said, hey, I'm looking to expand the practice. I want something new. Will you take over my caseload? And I said, this is a job during COVID. This sounds great. And then through more cards that ended up being dealt in my hand, I ended up buying the business from her last November. November before that in 2022, and then have grown it since then. So I was lucky. In Colorado, I wouldn't say it's easy to start your own private practice, but it's an option. And there's resources that you're able to kind of tap into to help with that planning process. But I also know that we have a couple hospital systems that are really big, and music therapy is huge within that. Like the Children's Hospital that's out here, I think there's like 35 music therapists on staff between the different sites in the Denver metro. So that's one path to go. To get contracts, it's a lot of cold calling, or a lot of, hey, I heard your name from my OT, or this teacher wanted music therapy here, or you do it there. Can you come to my school? I've had a lot of that over the past year. And highlights, I would say, from the job is that, yes, we're all old at the ripe old age of 28. But having
27, right?
20, true. Okay, well, my old ripe age of 28. And I haven't had a ton of jobs, but I do thoroughly enjoy going to work. every day. Is it tiring? Is it taxing? 110%. But right now, I don't see myself doing anything else, which I consider myself very lucky to be able to say that, because I know even within music therapy, not everyone feels that way too. But I recently had one of my little itty bitty clients. She's 18 months and has a genetic abnormality that like is chromosome X. I could not tell you what the exact abnormality is, and it has a syndrome name as well, I believe. But she basically only responds to music therapy. She is wheelchair bound and has cortical vision impairment, and recently got tubes in her ears to help with her hearing. And we just have so much fun in music, and she vocalizes and does all the really cool things. And the relationship that we've been able to develop with her parents has been really special too, to give them that time of just expression and engagement with their daughter, when normally she's more a little bit sullen and inward. But they've used some things we've used in sessions at home to kind of bring out some of that engagement with her as well. So that's been always a highlight of my week. I don't have favorite clients, but she's one of my favorites, 110%.
I just say with looking for jobs, sometimes you got to be a little flexible and just kind of go where the work is. That's what I found. So like, I'm in a little bit of a unique situation because my wife is also a music therapist. Um, but we've moved a few times now, and it's kind of like largely based on like where the jobs were, and just kind of making it work over time, because like being close to family obviously was important for us too, and we kind of made that work, but had to wait a little bit and be flexible with where we ended up to get to that point. Yeah, and I'll just echo what Kate said about just the good parts. I think you have those moments where it's just very clear you're making a big difference in like what you're doing. I don't know, imposter syndrome is what comes to mind sometimes. Very easy to fall into that within this field, as it is when I know it many other fields. But having those moments where like you really lock in with the client and you like see the work you're doing and the like repercussions of that happening in real time is just that's what keeps me going for sure.
Yeah, in terms of looking for jobs, like Josh said, you do have to be flexible. When I first was board certified, I just took the first job that I could get because I needed a job, and it was independent contracting, and I was like, this is definitely not what I want to do forever, but eventually something else will come up. And then the job I have now, like, I found through a connection, and connections, I feel like, in music therapy are super important.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
Because there's not a lot of music therapists, but there's also enough of us.
I think there's somewhere around like 6,000 in the US now.
I feel like that's gone up a lot.
Yeah, I think when we were applying for jobs, I think there was like 4,000. I think now it's around 6. I'd have to check the AMTA website or the CPMT website to really get that. But yeah, it's like, I feel like we all congregate to the same areas where it's like, oh, we all know what this is. And so there's a large portion of the country that's like, huh? What's this? Or even like internationally, I know it's growing at a consistent rate, but like we're luckily in one of the countries where it's more established. And yeah, it's just kind of like all the people wanting the jobs move to the area with the jobs, so then they all know each other, but they're also all like, oh, you also applied for it. Got it. Well, I value our friendship, but I also value my ability to eat. And it's an interesting dynamic, to say the least.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I got lucky. I had a connection for the job that I have now. But my favorite part is probably similar to Josh and Kate. It's like when you have those moments where either the teachers or the therapists, or if you're in a home, the parents are like, oh my gosh, they never do that for me. a lot of my kids just have trouble like holding instruments or holding anything. Like, oh my gosh, they held the shaker for 30 seconds. That's amazing. Or they waved to you. They said hello. Like those little tiny moments that kids don't normally do for anyone else. And you're like, it's because I'm the music therapist. Those are the best.
Yeah, on my track to job work, it's kind of like a combo of the connection and the luck thing happening. The job that I'm at now, I actually started in a different role when I was starting grad school, and then moved up to a different role in that, and then went off to do my internship. And then when I was done, reached out and was like, "Hey, is there a chance you all would be hiring a music therapist?" And like, actually, yeah, that'd be great. And so I was able to get it through like the connections I already had within healthcare, but also just timing. Like, if it had been a different time, who knows if they would have had it in the budget or in any sort of reason to hire a music therapist. And so it's been very cool doing that. And especially like the environment I'm in is one of the smaller fields of music therapy work. One of the larger fields is what a lot of people do, which is working with children with like intellectual and developmental disabilities. There's a lot of people in hospice. There's a decent amount of people in schools, but there's not that many working in psych. Partially because of what the job entails, but also just because of training and also just ability to find jobs. And so it's really cool. I think one of my favorite things is I get to see my guys for like years at a time. And so it is like most of them are adolescent boys who aren't the ones most ready to admit their faults or admit their change or admit things are working out. But when they kind of come back and be like, yeah, so Sean, I did that and it actually helped. Or like when one of their parents are like, yeah, no, like they're actually talking to us again. Like those moments are really cool for me to see. Cool. Well, if anyone has any closing words, the floor is definitely open. But if not, thank you, audience, for making it all the way through this episode, especially those of you who stuck around to like listen to this. Like, we didn't want to just put out a music therapy episode where we just talked at you, because that's not our podcast. So we had to do a fun little tie-in, but we really do value like letting people know about the field. And 50% of the main cast, Kate and I, work in this field, and so we felt that while there was a week for it and while we had a platform, we really wanted to take advantage of that and kind of bring awareness to something. Does anyone have anything that they want to close out, or should we go ahead and wrap up this episode?
Support music therapists if you know one.
Yes. Support, advocate, reach out to schools, reach out to Congress people, reach out to whoever needs to be reached out to. And we'll put some like intro links in the description below about where you can find some of that kind of stuff. And also, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us, and Kate and I can pass it along to the other two. If it's not a question we can immediately answer. Well, thank you, audience, for sticking through this super episode. I don't know how long it will end up being after post, but I'm going to find out soon, because we're recording this on April 7th, and Music Therapy Awareness Week is April 10th through 15th. So Sean doesn't have a lot of days to be editing Sean. But yeah, thank you so much to everyone. Thank you again, especially the two who joined us in a weird endeavor. And thank you, audience. As always, we love that you're here with us. Okay, goodbye.